Hi and welcome to The Scoop. My next guest is a financial guru that needs very little introduction. He's the force behind rich.co.ke, East Africa's go-to financial portal, author of the book Anyone Can Be Rich, and is arguably the most influential investor at the Nairobi Stock Exchange. Aly-Khan Satchu, welcome to The Scoop.
Thank
you.
It's
good to have you, Aly-Khan.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for coming.
And thanks for that introduction.
I hope I did it justice because you've done a lot of things in your life.
No,
I'm hoping to explore all of those with you. Ali, you're Kenyan by heart, by birth, born in Mombasa, but you haven't spent most of your life here.
No.
So where did you go from Mombasa?
So I came to Nairobi when I was 9 at boarding school. And then when I was 13, I went to boarding school in London. But I used to come back every sort of twice a year. So I feel I'd maintained my connection. It wasn't like I cut it off, but essentially sort of went to the UK, school, university, I was at Durham, and then started working.
So why did the folks take the decision to send you off at such an early age?
You know, I think, father had been sent off at a young age. In those days, you'd come back once every 2 years. Of course, by my time, it was much more frequent, but it had been a sort of family tradition, I think, coming from, the British tradition at that time, the sense that the center of the empire was in the United Kingdom. So I think those were the reasons, and I'm glad that they did that, because I think if you look at the world today, one of the qualities that I admire in people is global fluency, is the ability to operate in different geographies, different businesses with different people.
But many of those don't come back. I mean, they go out and they stay out, and that's part of the problem, not just in Kenya, but throughout the continent, giving young Africans that exposure to go away, but then they don't come back. So then you have the risk of losing some of that talent that really should be here. But fortunately, you came back.
Yes.
How long have you been back now?
I've been back, actually, I've been back now sort of 9 years.
When you went to university, to Durham, you went to study law.
I did.
But you're nowhere close to being a lawyer now.
Dad, grandfather were all lawyers, and I remember my dad saying, for goodness sake, Aly-Khan, don't do law, because he could see that it wasn't...
Don't do law.
Don't do it. And
really?
I remember him, like, we're here, he says, don't do it. And I think that was the last time that I did something because my father told me not to do it. And
you see, we're very similar in that. My father said never be a journalist.
Yes.
Said never get into the media.
And you did it?
Crappy life. That's all I ever wanted to do. I mean, I was too thick to go into anything else.
Come on.
I mean, it was, it was not, he was adamant, please don't get into this field. Go and get a real job. That was what he told me. But being a lawyer is a very reputable profession. But, it's you make money. You do good. You then decided to go into a world which is not so reputable.
I wouldn't say this is a very new thing. I mean, I wouldn't say it's. I think I was always interested in numbers. I like the fact that the markets, you could test your mental power against the markets. It's very easy. I think this will happen. Did it happen in 2 months' time? No, it didn't. I was wrong. Why was I wrong? It was that sort of thinking that I used to enjoy. So from a young age, without understanding it, I wanted to be a trader. The day I got to the trading floor, I realized, my goodness, this is where I've always wanted to be.
How did you get a job with absolutely no experience no practical experience in the financial sector?
I started in the lowest job in the bank. I was actually, I remember there were 965 employees when I joined. And actually, I would say I was the most junior person. My job was, there would be all these trades done by the trading floor during the day, and my job at the beginning was to print off each and every trade that had been done, and quite often it would run to 1,000 or 2,000. I'd never worked a machine in my life, and suddenly I was dealing with this machine, and there were all these people from the East End of London, and they'd scream across at me, Aly-Khan, you got a degree, but you can't work a machine, mate. And this would go day and night. But it was said like that. And I still remember her, but she'd come really close to me and say it. And she was right. I couldn't do it. How I got that job, it was the lowest job. No one else wanted it. It was about £4 an hour, which is about $6. And bear in mind that London, that even if you're working 10 hours, $60 is not you're not living like a king. So I did that for a few months, and then I worked.
And you took the abuse for a few
I,
months. You
I
took
took
it,
the abuse.
and you took it, because you were learning.
Yeah,
You saw it as a learning experience.
I saw it as, I mean, to me it was like if you wanted to be a football player, and you know you're good at football, and somebody says, "Fine, come to Manchester United, but you're doing shoes." To start off with, you're going to go and do those shoes, but you're going to think to yourself, somehow or other, I'm going to come and show what
Get
I
on
can
the
do,
field,
and they're going
yeah.
to say, okay, you're in.
Yeah. So from this sweat box
Yes.
in Credit Suisse,
Yes.
how did you get to that next level?
So I mean, I worked hard at that point in time. My theory was, and I subsequently realized Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book about it, where he says, where's the tipping point? The tipping point is 10,000 hours. He's found, whether it's Bill Gates or Yehudi Menuhin, hard work is the bottom. Without it, nothing happens. So I worked harder. I tried to learn. I learned it from the bottom up, right? So I tried to understand what I was doing. And then after about 12 months of a little bit of frustration, going to mum and saying, this is not what I want to do. Mum saying, stick it out, you know where you're going. And I was sticking it out. And I had to go and get a document signed by the vice chairman. And I can remember him like you right now. Johan was 6'3". He was Johan Beck. He was incredibly good-looking guy.
Just like me. I can
just
see
like
the
you.
resemblance.
And I told you
already.
I said it. Smoke these Cohiba cigars, which have a chocolatey flavor. Gucci loafers, and I'm going in there on my £4 an hour, or maybe a little bit more now. And I said, Johan, and he looks up from his desk, and I said, Johan, I want 10 minutes of your time.
Johan as opposed to sir.
I must have said, Johan
Is
Beck,
it-
and then I said, I want 10 minutes of your time. And he said, okay, shut the door. So I said, look, I'm down in this place, and he looks me up in the directory and realizes I'm really down. And I say to him, but I want to get to the trading floor, right? I want to get on the football pitch. I want to put the shirt on, and play the game. And he listens to me, and then he says to me, okay, come and see me tomorrow. He writes a letter to 5 people in the bank saying, I want you to give this man an interview and see what you can do for him. So I go down, and the guy I'm being interviewed, so I have 4 interviews. The 5th guy I come to is a man called Bob Diamond. Bob's sitting there. Bob, of course, is, a pretty big hitter, big reputation in the banking world, and start talking to him. And then I say to Bob halfway through, Bob, how much does that guy cost you? God, that guy cost me $1 million. I said, how much does that guy cost you? He says, that's $1.5 million. I said, I'm going to cost you £4 an hour, and if I don't work out, fire me. He looks at me, says, okay. That's how I got my job on the trading floor.
And we're going to come back and talk about that journey up with Aly-Khan Satchu. Stay with us. Hi, welcome back. We're still here with Aly-Khan Satchu. We're talking about the journey from the bottom to the top. So Aly-Khan, what was the first target that was set for you by Credit Suisse Bank?
In the first year when I started trading, they said to me, I said, what's my profit? How much do you want me to make? And they said, you got to make $1 million. Each seat costs us $1 million. That's fine. And that first year I made them 15. And that
$15 million.
Yeah. And that was just, it was from that moment on. And what happened was, it was one very seminal moment. I'll tell you what happened. I was dealing with Latin America. And it's incredible when I look back at it, because I was less than 30. And Latin America, same problems that they got now in Argentina. Argentina was bust. I was responsible for Latin America. Central banker calls me, says, I haven't got $300 million. I can't pay anyone Social Security. There's a revolution. And what had happened was, they had securities. And I said to them, what securities have you got? And they said to me, we've got some bonds. And I took those bonds and I lent them money. And then, of course, suddenly the whole of Latin America were going, okay, there's some chap in Credit Suisse who's commercial, who can do stuff. And that was how it started. And I had a guy in New York called Walter Fakula. And Walter was about 6'8", 360 pounds. And he was the credit officer. So in order to build my business, I needed Walter. And Walter and I got on fantastically well. And he really was supportive of the business. We grew it very, very fast. There were things that we did which I look back, you cannot do anymore. When Mexico collapsed in '94, Mexico had a thing where you could put your dollars into Mexico and you'd get a much higher interest rate. But it was a treasury bill, and they were promising they would exchange your money back from pesos into dollars.
Yeah.
And everyone did their math and said, if everyone comes to change it into dollars, you haven't got enough money.
Yeah.
And when that realization hit one afternoon, the whole of Mexico collapsed. Bond prices fell. It was blood on the streets. And I remember walking into my boss's office and I said, look, the Americans cannot afford this to go down, right? Because they'll have 10 million Mexicans running over the border. So when you look at it from a political point of view, they're going to have to do something. He says, I agree. And within 10 minutes, the bank had bought up everything Mexican. And they made a huge...
All the bad debt, everything.
We were with buyers.
Yeah.
There was one buyer in the market at that time, and it was us. And
Yeah.
we just bought everything. And the speed of decision that, they put a few $1 billion to work, on a 10-minute conversation. You don't have anymore. The markets have changed. That culture of risk-taking is not there anymore.
But yet they have been taking a lot of risk, and that's why we're in this current financial
I would
problems.
say the risks that people took were different. In those days, we were not gaming a system. The risk that was taken in 2007 and 2008, it was a system being gamed. Everybody was in cahoots with each other, right? And essentially, it was as long as the party could keep going. So when I look back, we're always going to have blow-ups in the financial markets. That's the way they operate. There is no sort of silver bullet that's going to give you stable financial markets forever. But I think, I think there was criminal activity in 2007, 2008. I think that's what created the crash at Lehman. That whole subprime crisis, look, people could see that coming, but it was like a party where the champagnes keep going and,
and
you're
they're all
not gonna be
looking.
the first to
They're
leave.
all looking after each other. We're all
That's
watching
right.
each other's back. Which, when you're saying in Mexico and other places in the 90s, you guys were on your own. I mean,
We
you
were
took
on-
risks. You didn't have to consult with the rest of the
No.
banking world. You took your own risks. Had it failed, things might have gone very
And
differently for
we've
you.
been in those situations where
Have you ever been in a
Yes,
place where it's
well-
completely you made the wrong decision, and the bank lost billions?
Yeah, okay. So I'd been at CSFB, 95, Konishi-san calls me, he's a Japanese guy, educated at Cambridge, very anglicized, takes me out, says, Aly-Khan, my dream is to build an investment bank in London, Sumitomo Bank.
Yeah.
So he says, I want to get 4 or 5 guys, you're one of the guys. And he said, you got to go and put the whole thing together. It's your business unit. You go and hire the people. I will put people in New York. We'll put people in Tokyo. I was 28 years old. I'm excited, right? I get in there. I take 7 traders from Credit Suisse. They're not happy with me. I hire a guy in New York out of JP Morgan, another guy. Our spend in that year was $2 million just on IT. Konishi was just saying, whatever it takes just to get started, and so we'd gone. Now, I had to kick my heels. I had a gap because I wasn't allowed to work by Credit Suisse. And I was going around, I'd been in Europe, and it was dead. You'd go in a shop, no one. You'd walk around, no one. And I'm an interest rate trader. And an interest rate, what happens was interest rates come down when the economy's not doing well. They make loans cheaper to get people to start to have some activity. France had a T-bill auction, and I bought everything. And in fact, the central banker called up because he said, who the heck is Sumitomo Bank buying French big treasury bills?
Yeah.
Week 1, this trade is $10 million up. Right? I paid for the start of the business. I've even got money in the bank. Everyone's like, okay, what is going on? This is fantastic. Week 2, we're up 20. Right? I'm the king. Week 2. 3rd week, I'll tell you what happens. I get home, and I've got a cousin who was staying with me, a guy called Murad. And Murad says to me, have you watched the news? I said, no, I haven't watched the news. He says, go and watch it. And Jacques Chirac, at that time, was the Prime Minister of France. And he set off a nuclear bomb in the South Seas. That same day, the Perrier bottles all got poisoned. These treasury bills where I was up 20 million, I mean, in a blink, I was down 10, right? I was down 15. Konishi-san says, Aly-Khan, I got Tokyo on my back. I've given you all this
Yeah.
Let's just cut our losses and start. And I'm thinking, I start 15 down, I've had it,
Yeah.
right? So credit to Konishi-san, he said to me, look, cut some. So we cut some at a loss, and let's see what happens. And he stuck by me. And we came under, he was thought of as a renegade Japanese banker and everything. But basically, we came out of it on top. But in that period of time, that little boy from Mombasa was suddenly going, holy cow, what have I thought I was good, but this is just a disaster. So I would say that was the most stressful time. Plus I had a lot of people depending on me who chucked in jobs because they wanted to be with me. And there were moments when people were looking me in the eye and saying, have you just gone and punted? Is that all you've done?
We'll be right back with more from Aly-Khan Satchu. Welcome back. We're here with Aly-Khan Satchu, and we were talking in the break a little bit about epiphanies and life-changing moments. So tell me, this Sumitomo crisis,
Yes.
an epiphany, a life-changing, defining moment. Any others that you've come?
Well, I think the epiphany for Sumitomo was when I found my wife was giving birth, and I was sitting there more worried about the positions that we had at the bank, and I suddenly realized that my work-life balance was out of whack. I think that was one moment. I mean, there have been plenty of. I think the biggest epiphany I would talk about is what I would call serendipity. I think what I found in life is that you get moments when you got to act to make it happen. Like the day I go into Johan's office, I could have just said, Johan, please sign it, been intimidated, and walked off. But I think what I've found in my life is that there are times when life presents itself to you in a way that you can't. I don't know how it happens, but you're suddenly on a plane, you're sitting next to somebody, and then you discover who that person is, and it's about grabbing those moments.
Do you see a future for your kids on the continent?
Yeah.
Would you like them to come back after they've gone to university? Do you have faith? I guess the question is, do you have faith?
Well,
in
I
this
think what
continent?
I'm conscious of is that I have a super conviction, right? I mean, there are a few times when I have a super conviction in my life. I made a lot of money once. I mortgaged my house. The day after the Iraq War, President Bush got on the ship. I can't remember its name. And he had this huge banner behind him, mission accomplished. And he stood and made that. He had all the combat gear, and the oil price collapsed that day. It went from like $40 in those days a barrel to 30. Everyone thought the war was over, Saddam was finished, oil will be flowing. And I remember going on, I said to Nisha, this is nonsense, this is an opportunity. And basically I bought what is called an option. I paid 66 US cents for the right to buy oil at 40. The oil price on that day was 30. I'd mortgaged the house, everything had gone in here.
Did you tell her that you'd mortgaged your
Well,
house?
I didn't tell her about the mortgage on the house, and I would never do it again. But I was so certain. And it had what's called a 6 months expiry. So it had 6 months to get back above 40. At 41, I would get $1 back. 42, I'd get $2 back. 43, $3 back. And that was a very testing period. We got out, it went to $50, I was right. But so there are times when I have a very supreme conviction, and being a trader, I want to have my chips on the table. I'm not a guy who's going to sit here and say, I believe in Africa. Meanwhile, I'm holding General Electric shares. I'm not. I've got my money in here at times.
So you do believe?
Absolutely. Otherwise, I would be back. I told you.
In spite of all the political issues, the insecurity, the corruption, not just in Kenya, but around the continent.
Africa is what I would call bifurcated. You've got to be practically schizophrenic. Because on one side, it's very, I can see we're going to be 2 billion people. You can feel the economy's growing. You can see that a lot of the data doesn't even capture what's happening. I have a supreme conviction. And I think actually the game changer was the phone, the internet, that side of things, which has brought us closer to the rest of the world. but I can't force my children to live my dream, right? So my thinking with kids is give them the tools to make a decision. Don't limit them, so that they could, if she wants, or any of them want to go to Tokyo for all I know, at least they can have the wherewithal to get there and find their own way. So I think it's a question of opportunity. I would be happy if they're here. I would be happy wherever they're happy.
Ali, you manage other people's money is one of the things that you do. The risks with that. I mean, do you get worried that you're going to blow somebody's life savings? Or do you tell them that, listen, whatever you're investing with me, make sure you can lose it?
So when I meet people, I first of all say, what returns are you expecting, right? Are we in the realm of feasible returns, or are we in the realm of, I want to double my money in 4 weeks?
So you manage expectations.
So manage expectations. Yeah. Have what is called a stop loss. So really, if you're giving me $100, I'm sitting down with you and say, look, at no point are we going to drop below 80. If we come to 80, I'm going to give you 80 back, and we're just going to have to call it a day, right? And when I'm telling people to do something, I'm doing it as well, right? I'm sort of
so you're also investing with them.
I'm investing with them, and then I like to think that I'm being pretty open. I'm telling you what I'm thinking. I'm giving you. I'm not doing anything in a black box. I've got people who are very aggressive, who will look for the very aggressive trades that I'm suggesting. I've got other people who are saying, look, I want 15%, 20% a year. Please do that, and that's what I'm doing. And I don't want to have sleepless nights, So I sit down and work out how I can do that best for them.
You've done a lot of, you've kind of started almost your own production company in a way that, Mindspeak is what you started Mindspeak, which is it a weekly event, a monthly event? A monthly event that you bring in prominent people in the business community and to have a conversation with you. With an audience, which you film and you put out. So tell me about Mindspeak and
so what happened.
Why?
I'll tell you exactly. The day I was coming back, I was driving from Mombasa to come to Nairobi to live here. My car broke down in Matito Ende, and I turned to my wife and I said to her, I'm going to write a book. And she said, you've never written a book. And one of the reasons to write the book was I said to her, well, everyone will have to meet me in 6 weeks because they don't know what I'm going to write in that book, so they'll have to see me. And they did. And when I wrote that book and published it, New Metro at the Junction said to me, Aly-Khan, come and talk about the book. I did that once, and a lot of people turned up. And I thought to myself, well, I can't keep doing it, but what can I do? And I thought I can bring in somebody of interest. I'd been at the time of the NASDAQ boom to San Francisco, which I love as a city. And I'd seen the enthusiasm that Americans have. And our people have the same thing. They want to improve themselves. They want to learn. One of the challenges for the young people is they see Salim there, but they don't know, how did Salim get there? So Mindspeak was a little bit about your journey, and then tell us about your business. Have a discussion, explain to us what you're doing. And that format seemed to work. And of course the breakthrough moment came because I wrote a letter to President Museveni. And President Museveni, one day I get a phone call. What is this Mindspeak? And I thought, I don't know.
That was him himself?
Yes. Yeah. Then he decides, says, okay, I'm coming. I thought, he's joking. I tweeted it on, so they said, Aly-Khan, you're full of nonsense. He's not going to come, you're deluded. And he came. And that was the same weekend that Bezige was in the hospital. And of course, everyone camped, what's he doing here? And there was a lot of drama, and that really was the lift-off moment.
And the future, you're doing so many things already. You're just going to keep doing those, or you got plans for something big? You said you're almost turning 50, so I hope the party's going to be great.
It is.
Okay.
You want to come to the party?
I'm just fishing for an invitation here. But in terms of the future,
I think there is so much happening here. It's a smorgasbord. I don't know where I'm going to be in 5 years' time. But as Vinod Khosla said, his favorite comment, he says, the future is not seen in the rear view mirror. And I think the future in Africa's case and in our case is something that I can't predict. But what I know is...
But you're going to be ready for it.
I'm ready for it.
Aly-Khan, the show is called The Scoop.
Yes.
You got to give me a scoop. Something about you that
no one
else knows.
Okay. So I got married, I was just married, and we're walking down Portobello Road. Do you know Portobello Road in London?
Yes.
My wife goes one way, and this lady comes approaching me, and she told me, can you come to Paris to do a Hermes male modeling? So I said, so I went to Paris and I hung out with like, 20 professional male models, 20 professional female models. It was like the most
So it
extraordinary.
was real.
It was real. I had these. I've got very big feet, and the Kermés have these lovely shoes, the soft velvet. And I'd never find them in my size. And they had one pair for me, and I still got those as a souvenir. So I did that, and to this day, if I tell anyone, they all think I was talking nonsense. But I went and I got my wife.
I
to
hope
buy-
you've got a record of that.
Oh yeah, I have.
Yeah? Excellent. And that's The Scoop with Aly-Khan Satchu. Join me again next week when I'll be talking to yet another great African personality. From me and the entire team of The Scoop here in Nairobi, Kenya, thanks for watching. Aly-Khan, thank you very much.
Thank you
Thanks
for having me.
Thanks for your time. I hope you enjoyed it.
I did.
Half as much as I did.
I did.
Because I really enjoyed that.
Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot, man.
I
Thanks.
appreciate it.